Hi, it's Eva Cartman, and you're listening to the Dream Big Podcast Show, the place to go to learn, laugh, and grow. Today I'm going to give you some advice that may seem totally backwards at first, especially if you're a long-time listener. We're going to learn why sometimes, especially when you are scared, you need to focus on the worst case scenario. See, I told you this would sound backwards, but it will make a lot more sense in a minute. This is episode 97 of the Dream Big Podcast, and it's time to dream big. My name is Eva Cartman. I'm part of a squad of super kids that are here to change the world. We don't believe you need to be adults to have big goals and start working towards your dreams. We believe age is just a number, and you're never too young to make a difference. We may be young, but we are not naive. We understand that achieving our big dreams will not be easy. It will take incredible dedication, hard work, and yes, massive action. There will be ups and downs, but we embrace the challenges and relish pushing outside of our comfort zone because this is how we grow. They may not teach us these concepts in our school textbooks, but we are smart enough to know that the tools and tactics to achieve our big dreams are out there, and we are willing to do the work to seek out these skills and master them because we know that our future depends on it. We are the big dreamers, and it's time to dream big. Before we get into this episode, I have some exciting news to share. In episode 85 of the Dream Big Podcast, we had legendary journalist and interviewer Cal Fussman on the Dream Big Podcast. Since we both live in Los Angeles, we actually met Cal and did the interview in person. He even treated my mom and I to ice cream after the interview. Cal recently launched his own podcast called Big Questions, and he was kind enough to return the favor and invite me to come on his show. I know you're all used to hearing me interview our guests, but what's different about my appearance on Cal's podcast is that he interviews me. He is a master interviewer, so he got me to share so much about my life and our journey in launching the Dream Big Podcast. The episode is now live. If you go to dreambigpodcast.com/97, we have a link to the episode where Cal interviews me. I think you'll really enjoy our discussion, so please check it out. And once you finish listening to that episode, you can check out his interviews of basketball legend Kobe Bryant and Shark Tank judge Damon John, just to name a few of his amazing guests. Again, go to dreambigpodcast.com/97 for links to my episode with Cal on the Big Questions podcast. Okay, now back to the subject of today's podcast. One of my sister's favorite books is called Backwards Day. It is a hilarious personalized book where everything is backwards. You wake up with your feet on the pillow, you eat dinner for breakfast, your mom asks you to mess up your room, and when you go outside, your shadow appears in the shade, and the cars are going on red and stopping on green. It's completely backwards, right? The advice I'm about to tell you is going to sound completely backwards at first, like the book. Because if you listen to Dream Big Podcast regularly, you'll know that I'm a huge believer in the importance of maintaining a positive attitude, to always look on the bright side. So you're probably going to be shocked when I tell you that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is think about the worst case scenario. I know, this advice is probably coming as a huge surprise, but hear me out. If you ever find yourself holding back and not doing something, usually because you're fearful, what I suggest you do is ask a simple question. What's the worst that can happen? And is it that bad after all? Now, there are a few more important steps that I'll share because I certainly don't think you should be spending all of your time focusing on the worst case scenario, but sometimes it is good to ask the question because you'll find that the worst case is not that terrible. and certainly can be outweighed when you consider the benefits you will experience if things work out okay, or even great. Let me give you a real example from my life. When I was in kindergarten, I found out that my school had a play for Aladdin. There were open auditions where you could go in and try out to get a part in the production. Aladdin was one of my favorite movies, so I knew I would love being a part of the show. But at the time, I was super shy, and I was really nervous about auditioning. My parents were encouraging me to try out, but I was resisting because I was just nervous about getting rejected. I had all but decided that I was not going to audition when my mom asked a simple question. Eva, what is the worst thing that can happen? I told her, well, I can go in there, sing my favorite song, A Whole New World, at the audition and totally blow it. I might forget the lyrics, and the director would laugh at me, and I'd run out of the audition room in tears and not get the part. My mom first pointed out that the likelihood of that nightmare playing out was slim to none. First off, even if I did forget the lyrics, which I knew word for word, after seeing the movie so many times, the director would never laugh at me. I was in kindergarten after all. This was not some big Hollywood audition. But what if I didn't get the part? Would it really be all that terrible? We then went through the alternatives and the likelihood of each situation happening. On the negative side, if the audition did not go well and there were more kids that were auditioning than available roles in the play, there was a chance I would not get the part. But then what? If I didn't try out, I would not get the part anyways, so the outcome would be exactly the same. Plus, doing an audition would get me to get out of my comfort zone, as I would be performing in front of someone else for the first time. Even if I didn't get the part, it would be a good growing experience, and perhaps the director would give me some tips on how to improve the next time around. And it is not like this would be a permanent decision, and I could never audition again in future years. Once you have gone through the analysis on the worst case scenario, you do not stop there. Now it is time to think about what happens in the best case scenario, or even an okay scenario. Since the auditions were open to the entire elementary school, grades K through 5, my mom and I agreed that the chances of me getting a main part like Jasmine or the genie were probably small because those parts would likely go to older kids. But there were lots of smaller roles that needed to be filled. And I really did know the entire musical inside and out from watching the movie so many times. Even if I got cast in a small role, it would be such an incredible experience to be part of the production. After looking at the low likelihood and temporary effect of the worst case scenario, and then comparing it with the higher likelihood and more lasting impact of the best case scenario, I decided to audition. And do you know what happened? Just as my mom and I predicted, I did end up getting cast in the show, and it was not for one of the main characters. I got cast in the small role of the monkey, but it was still my favorite experience of my entire year in kindergarten, and a memory that I will cherish forever. I made great friends. I got to know some 4th and 5th graders who will always say hi to me at school and make me feel special, and my family got to see me perform and gave me flowers at the end. So while this advice of engaging in worst-case scenario thinking may have seemed backwards at first, hopefully you can now see that it can be a useful strategy, especially if you need that extra push to get out of your comfort zone when you probably know deep down inside that you should move forward with the challenge. I could have missed out on that amazing experience of being part of the Aladdin production if I had not auditioned. So to quickly recap what we learned in the episode, when you're trying to make a decision on whether to move forward with something you are nervous or anxious about, the first step is to ask, 1, what is the worst that can happen? Would it really be that bad? And one way to measure that is if the consequences would be temporary or permanent. Also ask yourself what the likelihood of the worst case scenario happening is. Step 2 is to do the analysis on the positive scenario. What are the benefits you could get from moving forward and things working out? Here, you can think about the best case scenario and even just an okay scenario. In most cases, what you will typically find is that your fears are holding you back. And if you compare the worst case scenario with the benefits of a positive outcome, then it turns out the worst case is not nearly as bad as you are making it out to be. Big Dreamers, did you enjoy this episode? If so, please tell your friends and family about the Dream Big podcast and share this episode with them. Make sure to head on over to dreambigpodcast.com/97 for our show notes and also to get the link to Cal Fussman's podcast where he interviews me. At our show notes, you'll also find a link to our limited time offer for a free customized Dream Big journal with your face and name, as well as a place to sign up for our newsletter where you'll learn my top 10 tips on making and keeping great friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Eva Cartman reminding you that you have unlimited potential. Your dreams are not optional, you need to make them essential. So take massive action. Turn those big dreams into reality. Live with passion, the way life is meant to be. See you in the next episode. Bye!